Hey y'all, it's your girl Erin, and today I'm going to be playing some Minecraft. Yes, all the rumors are true. I'm playing on my survival peaceful server on the infinite snapshot of Minecraft. I'm also listening to some music, so if you look at the bottom of the screen or in the description you can see the details of the artists and yeah, it's like Creative Commons music, so that's cool to support them, I think. But yeah, back to building some farms. So in the last episode I built this cactus farm and it's giving pretty decent rates. It's like, I think it's around about a cactus a minute or something. But yeah, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be building a bamboo farm, and so before I get started on that I want to go get some resources because yeah, it consumes a lot of iron and wood to the way I'm building them, which is with excessive amounts of hoppers and hopper mine carts and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go over to the dimension that has the wooden floor layer and go get some logs over there, and then I'll head over to the dimension where I can get some iron blocks. So yeah, I'm just gonna be time-lapsing through the parts where I collect resources, and even when I'm like putting together the farm, because like it's kind of slow paced, so by time-lapsing it then stuff happens quicker and it's a bit more interesting. But then I do slow it down from time to time when something like interesting is happening, like I'm going through a portal or getting the last block or putting a new piece of the farm together or whatever. So hopefully it's a good experience to watch. Trying this new format out where I play the game and then record the audio later, because it just lets me focus on one thing at a time, like playing the game and what I'm doing in the game, and then what I'm saying. I can do those in two separate batches. So hopefully it also improves the quality of the videos. Adjust the levels of audio and obviously the time lapses and stuff as well. But also it does take a bit more work. So that's why I'm only putting up like one video a week, but hopefully making those videos better. And then with the time lapses and stuff I can still play for a few hours. So like for example this episode I played 2 hours and 50 minutes and then condensed down to like 55 minutes with the time lapses. But that, I mean, that is also because I'm doing particularly like time-lapsey stuff like building farms and mining resources. Yeah, but that's on yeah, and that's just that all. So yeah, now I'm getting some iron blocks, and so this is one of the reasons why I like playing on the infinite snapshot with all of these crazy, weird, whatever dimensions, because for most of the stuff you can just go to a specific dimension and grab the resource you're looking for. You don't have to worry about hunting for it or building a farm for it. But there are a few resources that, you know, are still easier to get via a farm, and so I've had to basically get those farms done before I wanted to get them done before I moved on to like more serious projects and stuff, because I want to be able to have like the freedom to go wherever I want. Like let's say I want to try go to a new dimension, I'll already have everything I need to create the block and coal, and I'll have the obsidian, etc. Already. I'm not going to have to keep searching for those things as I go. And yeah, so then the plan is to build this bamboo farm combined with the cactus farm. So I don't really need either of those, but together you can have an XP bank where they feed into a furnace, and then the furnace automatically smelts it, and then it saves the XP in the furnace, and then you can turn off the hopper below the furnace so that items stop going into the storage below it. And then when you do that, you can then take some smelted stuff, in this case cactus that's turning into green dye. You can take it out the furnace, and then all the XP from everything that's smelted up until then, even the stuff in the storage, gets rewarded to you. And so that's pretty cool. And then obviously you turn the hopper back on for it to start storing XP up again. So that's what the bamboo and the cactus farms are for. They're for the XP bank. And then I'm also going to do a sugarcane farm for paper, because you need paper for the books for Gothic quotes to go to different dimensions. So I also got some sand, by the way. It's quite a lot of glass I need to use up, so I'm going to get sand so I can smelt that into glass. But yeah, so yeah, then I've made the chicken farm for feathers, I made the squid farm for the insects. The leather you can get from the piglins by trading with them. Same with obsidian. And then yeah, then you have the paper, you've got everything to make portals and broken quarters. And the XP bank, well, that's not needed for the broken quills, but that is needed for enchanting. And also once you have like enchanted gear, if you have the mending enchantment on it, then you can repair the item's durability using your experience. Well, when you gain experience, it automatically repairs it basically. So you can have the tool in your hand, take stuff out of the XP bank, and that'll heal up your tool. So basically what I'm trying to do is to get like all the best gear I can get, and enchant it with like the best enchantments I can or whatever, and have the XP bank so that I can repair them. And then I'll be able to do stuff a lot quicker, because I'll have like really good gear and ways to keep it alive. And then I'm going to get the beacon set up, and then the combination of those two will make working on other projects I want to do a lot easier, a lot quicker. So that's the plan. But like, because I have stuff like the dimension with the gold blocks, which I'm going to go to later on in this episode, but because of that I can basically I've got infinite gold blocks, so I can do infinite trades with piglins. So that's how basically pretty much anything the piglins trade, I have an endless supply of. So that's really cool to sort out leather. And then I also realized that it's really useful for like, this music is interesting. It's so interesting. Okay. I haven't like listened to this music a lot, but it just sounded cool, and of course Creative Commons. So hopefully you listen to the same song as I'm doing the voiceover. I might change the songs around if I get like a copyright claim on a song, then try to switch it around, because like I don't really want to battle with that. And so many artists, they say like it's Creative Commons, you can use the music, and then you get a copyright claim anyway, and it's like traitor. Yeah. Found some very cool music this time. I guess I have more time to find music as well when I'm doing one video a week. So, but yeah, I also realized later on when I'm making observers that I might need a lot of quartz, and so fortunately the piglins trade you quartz as well. So it can have endless amounts of observers too. So yeah, after these farms are set up, it'll be beacons and enchantment time. And then after that, I can start working on some projects like decorating the different portal rooms, or building I want to build a spire basically into the sky, but like that goes underground to the base as well. And then I'll go to dimensions that have like colorful blocks and stuff, so I can use whatever colors I want. So yeah, you can see I'm starting to work on the farm now, and I had like a basic idea of what I wanted to make, but the way I'm doing it is not really how I've seen anyone else do it, and probably because it's super inefficient, especially resource-wise. It's not too bad with how much you can harvest from it, but it is also maybe like half as much surface area. So space-wise, not that efficient. But because I have access to such easy resources where I can just go and mine literal blocks of iron as many as I want, blocks of logs as many as I want, and not to worry about growing trees and stuff. Why not? It's not a real limiting factor. So if I have a reason to use so many resources, then yeah. So the reason why I wanted to use so many resources was because I wanted the machine to be kind of like modern feeling. So there's two main ways you can do the cactus farms. One is pistons that break stuff, which is the way I'm doing it. The other is a flying machine. The flying machine, I guess you could say, is modern, but I don't really have like all the blocks I need for it, and I haven't made them before, and I wanted to try this method out anyway. So apart from the flying machine method, you can have like your mine carts traveling underneath the bamboo, and then when it breaks, the mine carts pick it up. But I was like, no, I think I'd rather use the same collection method as I used in the cactus farm. So that's like basically just hoppers, and then you put down a rail on top of the hopper, and then a minecart with a hopper on the rail, and then sand on top of that. And you break the rail, and then the sand falls into the minecart with the hopper, which falls like down onto the hopper. And that way, if what you're growing can get planted on sand, which you can do for cactuses and for bamboo, then it can grow on the same block as a hopper. So basically, it will suck up anything that falls onto it and feed that down to the hopper below it, but it will also serve as a place for bamboo to grow, and I just think that's pretty cool. And then the other difference that I wanted to do was to make each bamboo have its own separate piston and observer circuit, because the way I've seen others do it is they have a line of observers at the top and a line of pistons at the bottom, and they link all the observers together and all the pistons together, and they run one redstone line from the top to the bottom, and that way if any observer detects a block, all the pistons break and it will just restart the whole farm, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way, but I just like the aesthetic of it being like more specific, or like, you know, almost like over-engineered, or like. So anyway, my idea was to use that for bamboo as well. But at the moment, I'm trying to figure out how to put two minecarts next to each other, because like you can't put cactuses next to each other. So this method works really well for them because you're not going to have the cactuses next to each other anyway. But you can put bamboo next to each other. But I couldn't put the minecarts next to each other without them moving. So I'm trying to figure out how to do it. I was like, maybe if I use the piston to push the minecarts in place, then it won't knock the other one away. But unfortunately, that didn't work. Now, I've just thought of another option. What if I put the sand in it first and then put the minecart next to it? That's worth trying, but I hadn't thought of it yet when playing. But basically, in order to use the hopper minecart method, you have to leave a gap between them. So that's why I say it's like half as efficient space-wise, because of having to have those gaps. That with a cactus farm, that doesn't impact your efficiency, but in a bamboo farm it does. But anyway, I just liked the vibe. So then I was like, okay, well, how do I get like a redstone signal down from the top to bottom if I have to do, like, I guess I have 2 blocks to work with here, but when I was originally coming up with the idea, I thought I would be able to put them right next to each other, so I was looking for a single block vertical redstone like signal conveyor. And then there's a few options with like sticky pistons and stuff that worked, but then I was just like, you know what, I could just have tons of observers. I have the resources to spare, and observers looking at each other will pass the signal down as well. So yeah, that's how I get the signal from the bamboo when it breaks down to its own individual piston. But yeah, this is where I am doing that minecart with the sand method I was talking about. So when you break the rail, the sand falls down, and now you have bamboo growing on top of a hopper minecart, which makes the floor a vacuum cleaner basically for items when the bamboo breaks. And then, so I use the glass to basically cover each section so that the items can't go anywhere except straight down onto the sand, and then get sucked in. So yeah, the rest of this, well, for like while I'm gonna be just working on this, when I was making the first row basically of 2, like the 2 bamboo shoots like next to each other, the first row of those like took me a while to figure out, because like I wasn't following a tutorial, especially like figuring out how to do the observers and all that. But yeah, I figured it out by trial and error, and then once I got it down, the next row was a lot easier to do. And I could add more rows to it as well, easily, but for now I'm going to see if I have enough, because like I can basically have enough bamboo to permanently be fueling as much as cactus is producing, which is, like I was saying, basically 1 cactus a minute gets. So it actually takes like 17.5 seconds or something, I can't remember exactly, to smelt the cactus, but So basically I'm going to be running at like a third of a single furnace's capacity with these two farms I'm building now, but that still ends up being one cactus a minute, because it's like it'll smelt the cactus for 17.5 seconds, and then the next 42.5 seconds it'll be empty, and then it'll smelt the next one. So if you think about it, like that's like, to get to level 30 would take half an hour. So if I really needed the XP, I could just AFK, you know? And I could even like super time-lapse that, so it wouldn't really impact the video much. Just go do something else while I'm getting XP, and I'll just record it. So that's an option, but I'll see how it goes, because it might just build up enough XP without me having to AFK. I don't know how much XP I'll actually need. Maybe if like I need tons and tons of levels to do enchantments and stuff, I might have to do that though. So one of the topics I kind of wanted to talk about, I guess, was about Solarpunk. So I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but just in case you haven't, I'll give you a short explanation. So I don't know if you've ever heard of something called cyberpunk or steampunk. Those are the two most popular iterations of the punk like genre, I guess. So usually cyberpunk tends to be quite dystopian in nature, where it's like corporations, you know, controlling everything, and a lot of inequality and stuff like that. But super futuristic. And there's like quite a few movies like that, like Blade Runner, or you know, any number of sci-fi features. They're almost always kind of dystopian and cyberpunky. Another thing that is quite popular in some circles is steampunk, and that's like kind of going the other way, where it's like, what if we had like more modern technology, like let's say airplanes, and like cars and trains, like all the stuff we have today, but the aesthetic stayed like in the, I don't know, 1800s or whatever, when steam engines were around. So it's like you might have modern technology, but it would be using like steam and cogs and pipes and stuff, instead of like whatever we use nowadays, like, I don't know, steel cables, and you know, like it's just for fun basically. But yeah, it just looks kind of elegant in a way. Like there's a game called Bioshock, where like that's kind of the aesthetic. So now Solarpunk is similar to that in terms of it being like more describing a genre of like art, but the difference being, you might get the hint from the word solar, but that's referring to solar panels for like getting electricity from the sun. And basically the whole vibe of Solarpunk is to have a positive, like towards utopia vision of the future, of how we could use technology to be more ecologically friendly and work with nature. That technology doesn't have to be used in nefarious ways, it can be used in positive ways. And so some people take it practically and they like are working on projects of like helping people who are in poverty and stuff to get like solar power and like electricity and fresh water using modern technologies like solar panels, obviously, or solar powered like water distillation stuff or filters or whatever. And so some people are like practically trying to use technology to solve problems and to increase our harmony with nature. But then it's also a genre of like sci-fi and stuff, and there hasn't really been a mainstream like work of art that's gone popular that sort of has that aesthetic. So it's kind of obscure in a way. And yeah, the farm is basically working. Just need to close bamboo in glass so that the items don't fall off the edge like this. But yeah, I want to write a book, a trilogy actually, and I'm going to write it in the solar punk genre. So I am like personally very interested and supportive of it as a concept, where I'm trying to basically at the end of the day, solar punk is about hope, and it's about how certain advances in technology are able to undo a lot of the harm that may have been introduced by technology, but also even to fix things that existed as problems in society before technology. So like one of the things that people like in solar punk like to imagine is people being self-sufficient, where they can have solar power covering their energy needs and then having their own like food gardens and water collection, not so that we can not need each other, but more like so that we don't we kind of living more in a self-reliant way, and so these like sort of government scale services won't really be as necessary, and it's more resilient because like you might be cut off from another part of your region if there's like a flood or whatever. Maybe the power cables get cut or the pipes get frozen or whatever, where if you bring the food and the energy locally, it increases the efficiency and the resilience overall, and so that sort of creates a stronger foundation basically for society. And then we still also will obviously need each other. We're not all going to be making our own like latest smartphone or computer or gaming console. I mean, you could, because one of the other things that's very solar punk is open source and open hardware. So like having equivalent to the commercial success. So like, let's say you could get an open source and open hardware manufacturing process to create a gaming console on par with whatever the commercial technology is at. That would be like a great achievement for solar punk as a movement, because it's about having that sort of technology serving us rather than being a way to extract money from us, So unfortunately, with capitalism and all that, like a lot of the research and development and scientific and sort of commodity-based research, it's all focused around money and how you can get the best patents or the best profits or whatever it is but it's not about what would be best for humanity, because having humanity have a technology or your research, to have that open source, or you to not make profits, that's ultimately better for everyone. But and because of the way things are and everyone needing to pay bills, then most of the people end up having to spend their skills and time and energy on the commercial level of research and stuff. So the sort of hacker movement is quite compatible with the solar punk movement, where people are trying to create through like collaboration and by sort of volunteering their time and stuff to make stuff that it might not obviously be at the same level yet, but the hope is to get there. But you got to start with the base level, and yeah, there's like some YouTubers that do that, like that's pretty much what they do. Or their channel is they work on open source software and hardware with like 3D printers and controllers that you can get pretty cheaply and stuff, and then making cool gadgets and robots and stuff with it. And it's pretty cool because like if you can have a community where you have a 3D printer and a few of those other tools amongst yourselves, and you can make stuff like that. You could make the things that you need without having to go and buy them or whatever. And so, I mean, if you live somewhere remote, then that's awesome because you don't have shops with all the latest gadgets and stuff around you. But even if there are, like, why pay the markup when you can rather, make it yourself if you want to? I guess you could even use it as a way to make money ultimately and not have to work for people if you did establish that kind of sort of means of production, but hopefully you wouldn't then stop the community level like open source stuff. But yeah, so open source is a very important part of the solarpunk sort of philosophy, and the idea is to have a world where both humans and nature are like have their needs met, and so solarpunk recognizes that we're pretty much already there with technology. Like we could have that, it's just that there's like political reasons for people to hold on to things like the centralization of power. They don't necessarily want people to all be self-reliant and for all research and knowledge to be open source, because then they lose leverage, they lose control, and they want hierarchy and stuff. They want to have control. But so by being solarpunk, you are undermining that sort of direction of the world to go towards the dystopian cyberpunk aesthetic. So one of the other things that has been come up in some of the social spaces that are kind of solarpunk is whether space colonization is solarpunk or not. And personally, I think that it definitely is. So I think I need to go get some more cobblestone there, because I didn't realize how much cobblestone observers used. And I'm also grabbing some glowstone because I wanted to make some redstone lamps. Because I was thinking I'll put the redstone lamps on top of the bamboo farm, so that every time a bamboo triggers the observer to basically trigger its piston to break bamboo, etc. I can also trigger a bamboo lamp, a redstone lamp to go off as just like a nice visual indicator. It's kind of like that whole vibe or aesthetic I'm going for, where it's built kind of like a machine or like a factory would have it, where having indicator lights when events happen is like kind of a standard practice in factories and like large scale manufacturing. So it only makes sense to me that you have a farm, you know, that has the way it works is like visible, and then when things happen you can see them happening. Like I was thinking maybe I could have the same thing with the cactuses, but I think it might just get a bit messy trying to cram observers and lamps into that farm. But maybe, it's not impossible, because like you could observe the hoppers or something. But yeah. Anyway, getting back to solar punk and space. So there's nothing, I don't think there's anything inherently negative about space colonization. I think the things that you would learn through that kind of adventure, the knowledge would be useful to everyone, not just people living there. So basically, there's very large amounts of resistance to change in the social model on Earth. And I think that's in part because there's countries that have military armies and stuff, and you know, if a particular region tries to change their government model too much, oftentimes that means something like the people get more of a say than corporations do, for example. So if the people, say, want the natural resources in their region to benefit them and so get nationalized, then that would mean the corporations who are otherwise going to be extracting those resources and making profits are going to have their businesses basically bought from them by force to nationalize them. And then they'll no longer be able to make profits there. And, you know, so what often and almost always happens when something like that happens is one of the countries with a big military engineers a coup or straight up invades them and makes it sure that someone who's going to honor the status quo takes place, and that the people don't get too much say in what happens in their own region. So I think in a space colony type environment, you're going to be able to have those kinds of changes in social models. You could have something a lot more horizontal and non-hierarchical, where people have more say and corporations don't have the same protections and service from political powers that they do on Earth. And if you do try, first of all, having such a new environment and the fact that it's so dangerous incentivizes people to not put too much power in the hands of individual people who are prone to mistakes. If you decentralize the power, you decentralize the risk of one person dooming everybody by forcing them to do something that other people may know better against but don't have a say due to your social hierarchy or whatever. So there's a survival incentive there. And on Earth, there's also that same survival incentive, that we have so much violent coercion that is like, we want what? I don't think so. Whereas we won't have so much of that social coercion in space colonies. Like, if you know that you're going to a space colony of 100 people and 10 of them are cops, like, you know what kind of space colony you're going to, and you're probably not going to go to that one. If there's 100 people and one of them are cops, I'm still like, do we really want to have a cop there? But, you know, it's not the same as here, where like, you try to protest whatever and the National Guard comes in and there's like thousands and thousands of people trying to shut you down. Like, that's not going to be the case in space. And you know, let's say you do have a new style of government and things are more non-hierarchical, something that has been tried on Earth many times but shut down over and over again by invading imperialist powers and stuff, and by undermining it. If, you know, you'll have like at least 2 years, if you time it right, when you switch to a model on a space colony on, say, Mars, before any kind of invasion can even get to you, because of the transfer window in space. And that gives you a lot more time to prepare. And you can use things like telescopes. You could even set up your own gravity wave detectors and detect, because you'd have to do it like maybe in space, not on Mars itself. But in a vacuum, those kinds of detectors, and you could also have one orbiting Mars, like a few satellites orbiting Mars, creating one, but anyway, those detectors should be able to detect, hopefully, the gravitational fluctuations of you know, objects exiting Earth's orbit, maybe? I don't know. Maybe they won't be sensitive enough, but because the book I'm writing, they are going to have people staying in asteroids like all the way around the asteroid belt and all connected together into one of those detectors. So that should have enough accuracy, hopefully, for them to get basically a 3D map of the solar systems. Hopefully at a resolution enough that they can detect spaceships and stuff. But anyway, even without that, telescopes should be good enough for you to know what's coming your way, you know, and you can prepare for that. And if they overcommit and send a whole force, you know, you could try and sabotage them and use the ships and stuff they send for your own purposes and make yourself stronger. So you have so many more options than on Earth you would just get overwhelmed. And yeah, people say, well, you know, they say like the people who want to go to Mars, they're like, it's just rich people who don't want to be held accountable for the experience on Earth. And it's like, maybe there are some rich people that want to do that, but very few compared to how many rich people would prefer to stay on Earth and live in luxury with equivalents of like royalty or nobility or deity here, where why go there, lose out on all the luxuries and lose out on a lot of your social stature, because if you go to Mars, people aren't going to care if you're rich or famous on Earth, if you're doing something that's going to endanger the success of the colony. Like, they will put you in the brig or whatever, like, they're not going to stand for it. Like, so you'd have to live a more humble life, and you could die and whatever, and you're not going to be able to do all the extravagant things that people. Sure, there might be other things to do, but I don't think it's, you know, once there's a base established and you start having tourism, then I think rich people will go there a lot as tourists and stuff, but I don't think they're going to be part of the pioneering forces, or if they are, they're basically going to be cosplaying as someone who's not rich, you know, like, they're not going to be like they are on Earth, able to call the shots and everything. And if they try to, they'll need 2 years before they can get their friends on Earth to come and reinforce their attempts, and, you know, so I really think space colonies are the perfect place for social progress to take root, and once proven to be successful there, because it won't have the same interference that attempts on Earth have had, then it becomes a lot harder for them to claim those types of social models can't work on Earth. It becomes clear that the only reason they didn't work on Earth is because people kept stopping them instead of allowing them to actually become the model that they're meant to be, and to prove that it works. And I think people who are against spaceflight, like, they say that it doesn't really help people, but MRIs, microwaves, like camera phones, like almost everyone enjoys these things from time to time. Hopefully not the MRI, but if you really need one, you're going to be glad they exist. And stuff like that was invented because of people going to space. So it's not going to be any different. There's going to be new technologies to solve problems that are very important to solve in space, and then they'll end up finding ways to solve problems on Earth as well. And that's again using technology to help everybody. I think it's very solar to do that. And you don't have to base your entire space colony on fossil fuels. You will base it on like sustainability from the beginning. You'll be able to expand space-wise without encroaching on the plants and animals that are already there, the way you would on Earth. So, ideally, like, everybody would leave Earth and live in space. Maybe you could live in orbit around Earth and then go on day trips to Earth as like one big park. That would be really solar punk. Saying that we have to stay on Earth when we're already kind of shown that we're not really good caretakers of it. Like, and even if we try to become good caretakers, like, do we really need to take up that space? Is that the best way to use space, where you could have this amazing, like, planet level park, rather than trying to build a park somewhere else, that big. But maybe people will still live on Earth, but they'll find ways to be in harmony with nature. But I don't know, I just think people who are, it's like, I think a lot of people, like as I was saying before, a lot of people have prejudice against Elon Musk. And I mean, he used an extremely problematic term. He said that he has Asperger's, which is supposed to be autistic, but not like super mentally like disabled or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of invented by a Nazi, and it's very problematic because that isn't really what being autistic is like. It's not a scale where you can have like more or less functionality. It's more that there are different characteristics and qualities that people who are autistic face, and they face different amounts of them at different times in their lives, different amounts for different people, and any one of them could be so people who basically are able to like not get a lot of help from others, and they would often want to or medically or whatever have previously been considered like a different type of autistic person, rather than just an autistic person who doesn't have the more difficult symptoms or qualities, basically. But anyway, the fact is that he mentioned it, so now I don't have to say, oh, like, I'm pretty sure he's autistic. I can say he is. and I can be a lot less tolerant of people who make fun of him. And it's like, you might think you're making fun of him because he's rich. You might think you're making fun of him because he's whatever, insert the reason that you think, like maybe anti-union, or he's not perfect and he has a lot of flawed ideas and stuff. I'm not saying he doesn't, but when you think that's why, oftentimes, in my opinion, it comes across more as you being, again, making fun of him because he's autistic. Because you don't give the same treatment to other rich people doing the same or worse amounts of bad things as he's doing. You don't give them the same level of ridicule and mockery. Reserve it for the one of them that acts quirky and has, you know, this divergent way of thinking and talking and acting and stuff. So, yeah, whatever. Like, there's no reason to. It's like, I like to think of it as like, people aren't innocent. The choices you make, you know, you should be held accountable for them. But at the same time, we can't pretend that we live in a society where we are taught what is right and wrong. We are given a very distorted view of what's right and wrong, and then propagandized or brainwashed into believing it. And then what is actually right or wrong is more difficult to establish and takes, you know, a lot of work and effort. And some people have made more progress in that area than others. And so I don't really get disliking or hating someone because they have wrong ideas. I do have a problem with people who want to hurt others, but if your definition of hurting someone is that, like, you know, sort of vague enough, then anybody can be to blame for anything, basically. So, I don't know. For me, it's like, I'd rather focus on treating people in a solar punk way as well. It's like, how do you work with people to get them into a positive space, rather than just branding them as a problem that needs to be cleaned up, you know, or whatever, like disposable. Like, no, let's recycle people too. And you don't do that by burning your waste. You do it by processing it. And we need to have a process for helping people who are acting harmfully in some ways to improve it. And if the person has got willingness to help and do good in general, then why not choose to try and help them recycle, you know, their ethics or morality or whatever, rather than like burn them because it's like, oh, they're not already in a form that I want them in. So yeah, I put those purple blocks down to just stop the last amount of bamboo from getting out below the pistons. So now the farm's closed up, and I'm just going to sit here for a bit and wait for one of the lights to go, because I just wanted to check that it was working. And It is actually on time lapse, but not much happening. But I'm gonna slow it down, and then you'll see the light go on. Yeah. Wait. Zoom. Okay. There we go. Top right. One went off. So then I'm gonna just go in and watch this one because it's almost to the top as well. And when that goes off as well, I'm like, okay, cool. Looks like it's working. And then I wanted to also check the other side, and the bamboo on the other side didn't get broken, so even though multiple lights at the top lit up, only one signal went down, so I'm not too worried that the multiple lights are, you know. Anyway, that's the bamboo farm done, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!